5.14. Do people die only because they live on the basis of artificial images, instead of images of their natural programs? Research of the ancient Chinese monument Shan Hai Jing and other ancient sources related to it clearly points to that death is not a mandatory event for a human, even more so at an age in which death in civilization is considered natural order of things. According to these sources, death is the result of a mistake or mistakes of a human, which caused a fatal damage to him as a living machine. And if a person stops making such frequent and fatal mistakes, he can live as long as he wants. In the Shan Hai Jing, catalogue of mountains and seas, monument such long lifespans are mentioned that it is not worth to tell modern people about them, because this will sound too fantastic to them. Perhaps the only cause of death that cannot be considered a consequence of human mistake is violent death, murder. In all other cases, people themselves are causes of their death, as well as diseases and other misfortunes that happen to them. And, as it turned out, there is only one cause that forces a human to make fatal mistakes, a virus called artificial images. Mistakes that led to death of an organism constitute of a wide variety of actions, behavior, human decisions. It is such a wide diapason of causes and effects that it is not possible to discuss this in detail here. However, in a nutshell, people die not according to laws of nature, and certainly not by the principle God gives and God takes away, but first of all, due to lack of information about themselves, about others, about the world, about nature. And, due to their deep ignorance, laziness, stupidity, and insistence on continuing to be stupid, unwillingness to work and study, lack of desire to lead a life of a human instead of that of an animal. An individual, without being even a human in that sense in which it is reflected in the ancient sources, imagines himself already equal to the Creator, and on this basis thinks that it is no longer necessarily for him to study the world and himself, to learn, to self-perfect. He thinks that he is already great, perfect, and mighty. However, absolutely all qualities listed above are qualities which a person gets by creating or using artificial images. There is no other reason. People who live on the basis of artificial images become dull and useless. They do not want to know and understand anything, do not want to do things right, but only in the way that they want. They are not interested in anything, they do not want anything, and do not seek anything except pleasure and doing nothing. They are too lazy to take care of themselves, their own health. They violate natural, moral, and ethical laws. They engage in self-destruction, as well as in destruction of everything around them. However, the worst thing for a human is lack of information. Since when a person does not have required information about the external and internal world, he begins to fantasize, imagine. Artificial images are fantasies, including human fantasies about themselves. And this is the worst thing that can happen to a human, since this is the reason various misfortunes happen to him. Quite often people are so carried away by their fantasies that they simply do not want to see the surrounding reality, even when the information is literally right under their noses. A human thinks in the following way: even if I am mistaken, I will continue to think and do what I want, as it is comfortable and pleasant to me. Each person certainly has every right to hold this position. However, from our point of view, this is typical suicide, and in a perverted form, a personally programmed euthanasia of oneself. Let me die from this, but until the moment of death I will feel good, pleasant. Humanity can play with their toy called artificial images for as long as they want, but people should not forget that an image is not a toy. They must understand clearly that if they think up monsters, then they become these monsters themselves in reality. With all the consequences, the main and the saddest of which is that they become mutants, and nature is programmed in such a way that any mutations get destroyed. Even though people do not track and regulate this process due to their ignorance, cells of a human body do not take ignorance into account. Cells do not argue what will be better for a person, as that is not their function. They simply realize, at the physical level, that image which a person chose for himself. This is exactly how any image works, regardless of whether a person knows about this or not. As a result, a person actually becomes those images, which he chose. Unfortunately, all of the above is not just another horrifying fairy tale of fiction. All of this has scientific evidence. Artificial images, instead of natural images, used by a human as etalons of his individuality, lead to the state of a mutant, and all mutations in nature get destroyed. Therefore, nature shortens lives of people who live on the basis of artificial software to a minimum, and then at some point turns on the program of self-utilization in them. Nature does not need people who transform themselves into mutants by their mad fantasies, who do not fit into the environment in a normal, natural way. Mutations, in this case, it is the only reason that people in this civilization die.